Today we are answering the internet's most asked questions about tarantulas, so keep watching. Welcome to the Tarantula Collective. My name is Richard, and if you enjoy videos about tarantulas, scorpions, and other inverts, I upload new content every Tuesday and every Friday, so make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications so you don't miss any new videos. Now, I've dived deep into Google Analytics and found the top questions that people are asking about tarantulas. And in today's video, we're going to be answering some of those. In fact, this was just supposed to be one video, but there were so many questions that I really felt needed answered. After recording this, I'm gonna have to break it up into 3 parts. So this is part 1. Part 2 will come out this Friday, and the following Tuesday will be part 3. So we have no time to waste, so let's jump right into the first question. Now, this is a question I'm sure a lot of you all have seen asked or had people ask you more than once, and that is, are tarantulas poisonous? And a quick answer is no, they're not poisonous, they're venomous. Poisonous means you eat something and it causes an adverse reaction. Venom is something that is injected into you that causes a reaction. So if tarantulas were poisonous, that would mean if you eat a tarantula, which some cultures do, it can make you sick or even kill you, which they don't. Many countries consider them a delicacy or even a snack food commonly sold by street vendors and markets or in areas of high traffic. Tarantulas do possess venom that can be injected when they bite. Now, this venom comes in varying levels of strength and chemical compositions and are different from one species to the next. It is commonly believed that tarantulas from North, Central, and South America have very weak venom, while species from Africa, Asia, and Australia, and the rest of the world have much stronger venom. Most of this is based on anecdotal evidence, as science is just now beginning to study the venom potency and chemical composition of specific species. The strongest and most dangerous venom has been attributed to both the Heteroscota maculata and the Poecilotheria metallica, but which one is stronger is still yet to be discovered, and the varying potency of venom from other species is still a long way off from being fully documented and rated on a scale. What is important to know is that no species of tarantula has a venom that is strong enough to kill a human. In fact, there are no reported instances of a tarantula bite killing a healthy adult. There is always the risk that tarantula venom could cause serious medical issues in very young or very old people, or those with pre-existing medical conditions. Though there are no reports of this happening that I could find, it is definitely a very slim risk that should be considered. Old world tarantula venom is usually considered medically significant and can cause muscle spasms, stiff joints, soreness, pain, headache, and nausea, and may require some medical intervention to help reduce the severity of the symptoms. While most New World venom is considered to be less potent than that of wasps or even bees, and having little to no side effects, and usually only consists of localized pain or itching for no more than an hour or so. All of this depends on the person and their reaction to the venom, and as with the introduction of any foreign substance into the body, there is always the risk of anaphylactic shock or an allergic reaction, which could require medical intervention. For the most part, venom is designed to paralyze or incapacitate prey like crickets or roaches, and most of the time is not strong enough to kill the prey, so the side effects on humans would be minimal. Now, the next question is one I actually hadn't ever put much thought into, but it was very interesting researching the answer, and that is, do tarantulas sleep? And the answer is kind of, but not in the same way that humans and other mammals do. Tarantulas have daily cycles of activity and rest. They do not have the ability to close their eyes because they don't have any eyelids, but they do rest or reduce their activity and lower their metabolic rates to conserve their energy. Tarantulas are mostly active at night as they are nocturnal, and most of their predators, like birds, are active during the day. They spend most of the day hidden deep in their burrows and will even close up the entrance of the burrow with webbing or dirt during the day while they're resting, only to tear down the door at night to wait for prey to venture into their territory. While hiding in their burrow during the day, they go into a sleep mode, much like your computer. If there is no activity around them, since they mostly react to external stimuli, they relax and stay still, and their metabolism lowers and their breathing slows down, so they use very little energy. But like when you move the mouse of your computer or hit a key on the keyboard and the computer immediately wakes up, when the tarantula receives external stimuli, like movement in their area or their webbing being disturbed, they immediately become active and will either pounce on prey or prepare to flee or or defend themselves? Another great question that gets asked a lot on Google is, are tarantulas intelligent, or do they recognize me? And unfortunately, the answer is no, not really. Tarantulas do not have a brain like we do, or like your dog or even your bird does. They rely solely on instinctual responses. Over hundreds of millions of years, they have evolved and honed their skills and responses to react to external stimuli. They have a very primitive nervous system when compared to more evolved spiders like wolf spiders or jumping spiders. They have a cluster of nerves called the ganglia that is essentially their brain that mostly processes sensory input. They have no memory, no self-awareness, and no problem-solving abilities. It is common for humans to anthropomorphize their pets, attributing emotions and complex reasoning to their dogs and cats, even though they are incapable of those abilities. And that is true with people and their pet tarantulas as well. Tarantula keepers sometimes feel like their tarantula recognizes them, or even loves them. But unfortunately, there is no scientific data that supports those beliefs, and despite a lot of scientific data to the contrary, some people still believe their tarantulas know them and love or hate them. As Chris Rock's character says in the movie Dogma, it is better to have ideas. You can change an idea. Changing a belief is trickier, so there may be no way of convincing people with these beliefs of anything different, and they are probably upset with me right now for not agreeing with them. Tarantulas, with all their beauty, colors, and large size, are actually among some of the most primitive and least advanced spiders on the planet. They lack the ability to form and recall memory because they do not have a brain advanced enough for that ability. They react solely to sensory input, and it is possible for them, over time, to adapt to and get used to certain stimuli, which is more of a learned behavior or conditioned response than any actual recognition or memory. So possibly a tarantula can be conditioned over time to recognize the vibrations of an enclosure being opened, meaning that prey is about to become available. But that is more of an adaptation to sensory input and not indicative or proof of memory or the ability of complex thought or critical thinking. If you want to find actual forms of intelligence in spiders, you can find that in more highly evolved species like jumping spiders, who have proven over and over their ability to recognize and develop a basic memory and use critical thinking in their abilities to stalk and hunt their prey. They have amazing eyesight, and scientists are continually amazed at their intelligence the more they are studied. Now, this question you've probably wondered yourself, or at least seen it asked so many times in Facebook groups and tarantula message boards, and that is, can multiple tarantulas be kept in one enclosure? And unfortunately, that answer is no. They typically do not tolerate being kept in the same enclosure, and if you were to attempt it, it would most likely end in disaster. In nature, there are no recorded instances of tarantulas living communally with one another, though there have been some species observed tolerating living in close proximity. For example, the Avicularia minatrix has been seen making their web tunnels in the leaves of a plant or bush, and other specimens of the same species can sometimes be found with their own web tunnel in different parts of the same bush, though they are far enough apart from each other that they do not interact, and most likely, if they were to cross into another's territory, they could be seen as prey and even eaten. In captivity, though, there have been a few exceptions. Most popular would be the Monocentrophus balfouri, or the Socotra Island blue baboon tarantula, which has been kept successfully in communal enclosures for years, with as few as 2 or 3 and as many as 50 to 100 in very large enclosures. They seem to be willing to share prey, and they'll crawl over top of each other with little to no aggressive behavior. In addition to this species, some have had varying levels of success keeping Neotheliense, Hostolotheria metallica, and H. gigas in communal enclosures. It seems the success rate is much lower though, as commonly the smaller specimens get eaten at some point or are not able to compete for food and end up dying. Avicularia were thought to be communal for many years, but for the most part that has been disproven and is no longer an accepted fact. In a large enough enclosure where they have plenty of space, they may tolerate living in close proximity, but there is always the risk of ending up with just one very fat tarantula. Now, this is one of my favorite questions that people seem to ask a lot, and that is, can tarantulas swim? And the answer is, kind of. There are videos online showing tarantulas swimming in water, But this isn't a behavior that they do intentionally or very effectively. Due to the waxy coating on the hairs of the tarantula, a thin layer of air is trapped between the water and the spider, giving them the ability to float. This is beneficial for arboreal tarantulas who may fall out of a tree or jump away from danger and fall into the water below. Also, this helps terrestrial or even fossorial species survive if there were a sudden flash flood in the area where they made their burrow. Through studies documented by Jason Dunlap from the University of Manchester, the tarantulas can immediately recognize they are in water and they're not happy about it, and would briefly be still, then begin rapidly moving their front 3 pairs of legs while dragging their back 2 legs behind them, essentially rowing themselves to safety. They have not adapted the most efficient way to move their legs to quickly swim, and instead move their legs similarly to how they would walk on land, which gives them the ability to move themselves to the edge of the water where they can pull themselves out to safety. Not all species are able to do this though, as it was observed some tarantulas with heavier bodies did not float well, and would even sink and curl their legs under, and would have to be rescued. It is kind of like throwing someone that doesn't know how to swim into the water, and they frantically start moving their arms and legs instinctually, and happen to move through the water safely. They aren't proficient swimmers, and do not seem to intentionally jump into the water to swim. But if they find themselves in water, most tarantulas will be able to stay afloat and move themselves to the edge and climb out. If you want to continue watching the rest of this series where I answer the internet's most asked questions about tarantulas, just click this playlist right here. And if you want to see my tarantula nature documentary series, just click this playlist right here. As always, I appreciate you watching. Subscribe if you want to see more, support your local bug dealer, and I will see you next Tuesday.
I do it for real, there's no reason to pretend. If I do it once, I do it again.